So what I'm doing here is basically covering the clay sculpture so it almost looks like a bowling pin. And the reason is that I'm going to add the mass of it, and this is going to be life size, and that's about it. But I'm going to bring the chin to here so I can add more to the mass. The clay is dropping down and I keep having to like push it up. And I've used quite a bit of clay already. This was a full bag, a 25-pound bag. That was this much. I've already used all of it here. Life-size bust like this is that once you finish and it's almost like roughed out, you can cut the inside, scoop out the insides, and you can use that clay for the shoulders and stuff like that. But there's not much I can do right now because this is so wet that it's just drooping. I need this to firm up. This part needs to firm up. And then I have like an idea in mind for the sculpture, and then I'll work on that. The only thing I'm doing is making sure that everything's like pressed in pretty well, and there's an armature inside too holding everything up. The only thing to keep in mind now is to add the bulk of the skull, and you gotta get the width, the height, and how narrow the head is. Next step is to figure out where the eyes are, and it's usually middle of the skull. And I usually like to dig out the orbital socket. Then I add the ears, which are in the middle of the skull. And I ran out of clay, so there should be a little bit more skull in the back. I twisted the head to give it an action right off the bat. Sometimes sculptures don't go the way I plan, and this one was kind of one of the sculptures that I didn't get what I wanted, mainly because I didn't get enough reference to start out with. So I was struggling to figure out what to do, and it eventually took a life of its own that was very different from the subject. But in the future, I need to make sure I have all the reference that I need to get started. And on this, I did not do my homework. I'm not using a life model, which is always a bad idea. If you can work from a model directly in front of you, that is ideal. If you have to work from photographs, make sure you take your own photographs. And of course, if you don't have reference through your own photography, you're gonna have to do a lot of research. So right here, I'm digging out the head of the sculpture because I'm going to hollow it out and fire it. It's fairly easy to do when the clay is fairly soft, but you do have to remember you don't want to dig out the sculpture before it's time, otherwise it'll become fragile and it'll break. At this point, I'm just adding a few details, and I wanted to add a little bit of structure to the nose and modify it so it didn't look so standard or generic. So I add a little bit more details to the ears and complete the left and the right side of the skull. Add a little bit more to the hair, and then I take a rag and I smooth out all the geometry. That way it's like one unified sculpture. And I didn't take it much smoother than that. I like the roughed out process. Alright guys, I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next sculpture.